My name is Stephanie Hulon, and I'm the director of the South Alabama Research and In-Service Center, or SARIC. And we are so excited that you're joining us today. I think I've mentioned a few times if you've been on the call for just a minute, but we do have that digital sign-in sheet. We'll keep posting it. If you could please sign in for us, we would greatly appreciate it. We're required to have a sign-in when we offer a session at our center. I also want to share that Dr. Zha's link to her presentation is in the chat window, so that way you have access to the presentation after she is finished. Dr. Zha is an assistant professor here at the University of South Alabama College of Education and Professional Studies. She's going to be talking with us about creating interactive and digital lessons today. And we do want to share that we encourage everyone to reach out to their principals or their district and be sure to consult them in regards to permission on any specific technologies. And the reason that we encourage this is because it's due to federal laws. Your district has information about the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act, the Children's Internet Protection Act, and the Protection of Pupil Rights Amendment. And so the tools that they select for you to use as a district meet those requirements. So that's why we always encourage you to ask your principal if this is an approved tool in your particular district. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Zha.
Good afternoon, everyone, and my name is Shenhua Zha. Feel free to call me Shenhua. So, following maybe 15 minutes, we're going to discuss how to develop an interactive online lesson to engage our students. And then we'll then talk about the different types of interaction and how to use the different tools effectively to engage and promote those 4 types of interactions in our online class. And then almost at the end of the session, we'll also align those tools with different learning stages in our online lesson to see what tools might use in one or multiple learning stages to engage our own students online. And we'll have hopefully we'll have about 5 minutes at the end of the session. If you have any questions, feel free to ask then or between our presentations in the first 40 minutes. Okay, so our first task is about a small experiment. Just look at these numbers, a string of numbers. Don't write it down. Don't use any strategies. Just look at these numbers. I'll give you about 5 more seconds. Don't write it down. Don't use any strategies. Okay. So what interactions can occur in an online class? So this is a little bit different from what we have taught in our traditional on-campus courses, because there are 4 possible types of interactions that can occur in an online class. They are student-instructor interaction, student content interaction, and student technology interaction. So we need to understand how these 4 different types of the interactions occur in an online class so that we can minimize some psychological distance caused by the online learning and help to engage our students. And then we'll discuss these 4 types of interactions one by one. So first is about the student-instructor interactions. So that's a part we're mostly familiar with or we also do this in our regular on-campus courses. We talk with our students and we communicate with them for mainly 2 purposes. One is instructional. We inform them about our instructions, what to do in today's class. We inform them about the different assignments and projects, what you are expected to do in this assignment or in this project. So this is instructional. We also communicate with our students to support their learning. If they have any questions, we may guide them to help them to find answers, or sometimes we give them answers. And when they turn in the assignments, we give them the feedback to improve their learning. So that's supportive. So here, I'm going to introduce 3 tools that can help to promote our student-instructor interaction in our online class as well. So the first tool is the Google Doc, which some of us may be familiar with. It's a product in a Google suite. So we can use Google. This is an example, like what you see on the screen. It's a one example of using the Google Doc. You can use Google Doc to post and share your instructions of a lesson. You can arrange your lesson weekly, or maybe like every 3 days. You tell students, this is your learning objectives in this week, what you're expected to do each day of this week. And then you can also post your instructions of different assignments. And here, if you are using different tools, or if you're using learning management systems, you can post the link to guide students which link you should go to complete what activity in the lesson or this week. So pretty much you can use this as a hub, using Google Doc as a hub to put your instructions all together. So this is one example about the Google Docs, Google Documents. And the other example is, I don't know whether you have heard this tool, is called Class Dojo. Okay, it's called Class Dojo. So this is, people call the classroom management tool. In our regular class, we use it to manage our students' classroom behaviors. But in our online classes, we can also use them to post our instructions and give students feedback to their projects or to their assignments. So under the within the Class Dojo, it has several different features. One is the portfolio. You can use a portfolio tool to ask students to inform you about their weekly learning progress. You can also use Class Story to do that. So Class Story, I think, is a feeding feature where you can ask students to take a picture and upload it here, to attach their homework, to record their reflection using a webcam. You can also post events to remind students what's coming up and what is due for the specific assignments of the class. And I see some chat window. Do you have any questions? The chat window is lighting up. Are we good? Okay.
I think we're good.
Okay, great.
Does someone have any questions?
So maybe this go through of tools is a little bit fast, but we'll have an opportunity to go back and review this and discuss it at the end of the class. So we can use a Class Story to provide feedback to students' projects, especially if those projects are collaborative. It doesn't matter whether students want to share those assignments in class or not, we can use this tool. And for the learning support, we can use the Google Groups. This is like, I'm going to share, of course, I cannot do it in my working email. I have to do it in my regular Gmail to share with you. The working group is, it's like a discussion forum, which share. We can use it for multiple purposes. First of all, yes, we can use it like a regular discussion forum where we can post the questions for students to reflect and for them to post their answers. Like you see, this is the discussion forum that I join in. As long as the students have their Gmail accounts, they can join in the discussion. We can also use Google Groups to post our announcements, because everything we post to this group will also receive the messages in everyone or participants' emails. So we can also use this like as a listserv or announcement tool for our online classes. And we can also use it to post specific questions. If students have any major issues with a class assignment or major questions with the class presentation, we can ask them to post their questions. And then either we can encourage their fellow students in the same class to help them to answer those questions. So then we are using this tool to support students' learning. So this is about the student interaction, instructor interactions we can promote in our online classes. So to this stage, we went over some tools to promote student-instructor interaction. And do you have any ideas about how you will create or promote this student-instructor interaction in your online classes? Feel free to share your answers either by chat window or use the microphone. Anyone would like to share what you are interested in doing and what you will do in your class? Or we would like to go ahead and move to the next type of interaction. Trying to find whether which way I can see the chat window. Somehow when I share the screen, I don't see the chat window here. Maybe no. Let's see. Okay. So Stephanie, do they have any ideas sharing, or are they typing, or?
I don't think we have any in the chat window just yet.
Okay.
But
okay.
Maybe they're coming.
Okay, great.
We had one. Okay, Jessica says that she'll be using Google Classroom to communicate with her class. So that's one way and one tool that she will be using to help promote that student-instructor interaction.
Yeah, that's great. So Google Classroom is a learning management system. So it embeds several tools, and one or two of them we might have discussed just now, like Google Docs or Google Groups. So yes, that's a great way to discuss and communicate with our students.
We had Erin who said she's also using Google Classroom as well. Let's see. We had someone who's taking notes from the presentation. May I see the 3 student interactions again, please? The 3 different student interactions. The tools, I think.
Yeah, and actually, these 3 tools and all the tools actually I put together in a separate Google Doc, which I will share with you at the end of the class, which also will use that Google Doc for our discussion as a second part of the session.
I wonder if we could share slide 6 again, Dr. Jha, that has the picture of the different types of interactions.
Yes.
I wonder if that might help that question. And while you're doing that, I'll share some other things that are coming through on the chat window. Someone said they could post a daily question for their students to interact with all subjects. That's an idea of how they're promoting that interaction in the online environment.
Okay, yes, that's great. Yeah, daily questions to keep students in track. That's a great way to help our students, because the young kids, they may not have sufficient time management skills, which most of our online learning requires. So we have to proactively to do some activities like post these daily questions to promote or to encourage their forming of this time management skills day by day. Yes. Okay, great. And shall we continue to the second type of interaction?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. So let's go to the second type, which is also a very important part of the interaction in our online class, which is student content interaction. So by now, I'm going to ask you, remember the first string of numbers we saw on our first, I think it's on slide 3 or 4. How many of you remember the number? I already asked you, don't write it down, don't use any strategies. So if you don't remember, just type don't know or don't remember, that's fine. I just want to see how many of us remember, how many of us don't remember that.
We have some people posting in the chat window that some of them don't remember, some of them remember some of the numbers, some of them don't remember, and someone did remember the numbers.
Oh, wow, okay. I'm going to ask you, do you take it down, write it down, or do you use any strategies to remember those numbers?
I only remembered the 001251221, and I think it was 4566 or something like that.
Okay, great. Great, thank you very much. Yes, I think that's great. And I'm actually surprised to see that without using any strategies, without writing down, you can still remember most part of the number. So this is a number that I put it up at the beginning of our session today. It's hard. It's hard to remember this, see how many, 1, 2, 3, 13 digits number. But if we arrange it this way, how does it look now?
Dr. Jha, I think
yes.
we're still seeing your Google group page of
Oh,
this.
I'm sorry.
I'm only seeing
that's
that.
Right. Yes, that's right. Of course, that Google page I shared on a different browser. I'm sorry. Yeah. Okay. So now, say, if we do arrange our 13 digits numbers this way, how does it look? Do you all see the slide now?
Yes.
I do.
Okay, great. Does it look better?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's what we need to consider when we design the content, because in the student content interaction, remember the content part, it does not come naturally. The content has to be designed by us as teachers. So in this case, we need to be aware that what content and how shall we arrange or put together the content to engage our students. That's why I put that small experiment about the digital numbers, because the psychological studies, they found that our human beings, our working memory is limited, is very limited. And magically, they came out with this number. They said the 7 plus or minus 2 is a number of chunks that our working memory can process at one time. So basically, that means our working memory is very limited. And that's why it's very hard for us to process the 13 digits numbers at one time. However, if we chunk it into 3, 3, 3 by 4, it becomes easier. So let's keep this number in our mind. And together with the number of chunks, time also matters. We also have studies that examined the adult's attention span. beware that this is a result studies of adults. They found that as adult learners, as us, in ideal situations, we can stay focused in a presentation for no more than 20 minutes. Remember, this is just the 20 minutes for adults. And for younger kids, I believe you all agree with that, the minute will be shortened magically, right? So by saying this, I don't mean that, oh, we have to remember this 20 minutes and the 7 numbers when we design our content. We have to say we cannot exceed 20 minutes, so we cannot exceed 7. Actually, these are just some index to remind us that when we design our content, we need to be aware that students' attention span is limited. And the number of the information that we can process at our mind is also limited. So by saying that, I say as teachers, when we design or develop our content, we need to put on the designer's hat to design our presentations, to design our readings for students, and even to design our practice for students to interact and self-assess their learning progress. So the 3 tools that I'm going to make some examples that can help to promote the student content interaction and to engage their online learning. So those 3 tools are Edpuzzle that we can use to present our content, and Write Reader if we want to develop our own e-read books, or even if we want students to work and to write ebooks as their projects. We can also use quizzes as a practice tool for students to interact the content and to self-assess their learning. So the Edpuzzle, I already logged in. It's a tool where we can upload, if I go to, we can upload our own video that we created, or let me move it here. We can also search from the YouTube, from Khan's Academy and National Geographic, this large repository of videos to find appropriate one. And we can insert questions in those videos. For example, this video, the blended learning, is what I found online. And then when I watched the video, I found that there are 3 places I can insert the questions. For example, I actually inserted 3 multiple choice questions in this short video. And then when we share this link with our students, they play and watch the presentation. And when it plays to that, I'm going to pause this. When it plays to that, the time, the video will pause and the questions will pop up like this. Do you all see the questions on the screen here on the right side? And students, they need to check their answers and submit it. If students are not sure, they can click on the rewatch button and it will play back about what they just watched and come back to this question, answer the question, submit, and proceed to continue finish watching the presentation. So this is the Edpuzzle we can do to make the presentation interactive. And the good part of this Edpuzzle is that it only allows up to certain gigabytes of the presentation. That's one way to make sure that our presentation does not contain too much knowledge that burdens students' load, the cognitive load part. So that's the Edpuzzle. And another tool that we can promote student content interaction is this ebook creation tool called Write Reader. So it's a very easy to use tool. Once we signing or students signing, we can create a frame of this ebook. and we can enter the texts, we can insert the images, and we can also record our voice to make it as a narrative book. So that especially if we want to include some instructions with both written and audio instructions, we can use this one and make it a customized textbook for students to read. And then we can also give assignments for students to post their reflections in images, in texts, and even record their audio reflections. Thus, to make this ebook not only as an ebook, but also as a reflective journal for students.
Dr. Jha, from the
Yes.
chat window, one of our educators shared that she really liked this tool. Is it free for teachers?
Yes, it is free. It is free from my understanding.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then you can also toggle and share the link with others. But even if you click the share link, the link is not available outside Right Reader. So everyone who wants to read the textbook, especially students' textbook, they need to sign in to read the textbooks. So the third tool that we're going to discuss about promoting student content interaction is quizzes. So probably some of us already have used this in our regular classes to test the students' understanding or to encourage this group competence to test their knowledge. But we can also use it in our online classes as well. For example, here, once we create a quiz, we can also find a quiz to find existing one for our students to practice. Once we develop this quiz, you see that we can assign as a specific homework, or we can share the quiz as a self-assessment practice for students just to play and check their own understanding of some knowledge. Yes, any questions?
We had a comment from one of our educators. Some of my students were using quizzes and were pulling up random quizzes from the site, and the students came across some very inappropriate content. So that's very good to know. Thank you for sharing that we have to be very mindful of any technology resources that we use.
Yes.
So thank you for sharing.
Yes. And then Stephanie, I think some of us probably have not joined the session when you talk about that the safety and the consulting issues about using tools. Would you mind repeating that again to the participants?
Yes. At the beginning of the session, I just shared, we know that there are 3 federal laws that our districts are mindful of when they select technology tools that can be used within the district. And there's a process for how they review those tools. So you always want to check with your principal or your specific district to make sure that the tool that you're using is an approved tool for your school and your students.
Thank you, Stephanie. Okay, so we just discussed the student content interaction, and be mindful that we need to put on a designer's hat to design appropriate and arrange content effectively to improve student content interaction and engage our students in online learning. So this is a sharing time again. So please share your ideas about how you will create or promote the student content interaction in your online instructions. Feel free to type your ideas in the chat window or use a mic.
Wendy shared, I love the Ed puzzle where the teacher can read the story and then do reflections.
Yeah, Edpuzzle is an interactive presentation tool. So you can upload your presentation or instruction video, or you can search, find a great one, for example, from Khan's Academy and upload it, but you can put the questions between those, within those video clip, so that students can self-assess their learning at different stages in the video, in the presentation, and then they can decide whether they want to replay or to have more questions, or they can go ahead and watch the rest part of the presentation. Yes. Okay, any other questions or ideas? Okay, great. So next is a student interaction. So this way we can promote some type of collaborations, and we can also encourage the peer information exchange, because in some studies, what researchers and what we found is that sometimes when students see what their peers created, if they look good, they will adopt it and follow it very quickly. So we can use different tools to encourage those positive adoption of new skills or the knowledge. So the two tools I'm making the example or promote today, not promote actually, listing as an examples, they are Google Jam and Canva. So Google Jam, as you see, is also a Google product, is an interactive whiteboard product where you can demonstrate a short instruction, where you can also ask students to work together and do some brainstorming and come up with group consensus on some group projects. So this is an interactive whiteboard. You can also connect it to your, when you do your synchronous online presentations, you can also use it at the beginning stage of a student's collaboration projects to encourage their information exchange. The second tool I'm discussing here is called Canva. So it's a collaborative graphics tool where students can use collaboratively to design posters or presentations. For example, students can now work together to design some promotions on how to stop the spreading, stop the spreading of the virus. They can also work collaboratively to design some other posters together and presentations together. So this is the a tool that encourages students' collaborations called Canva. And this is also a free tool. And basically all the tools that we discussed today, they are all free. But still you need to discuss this with your screen principals to see whether they are appropriate to use in your school for your students. So please share your ideas about how you will create a student-student interaction for your online instruction, and any ideas or questions to promote this student-student interactions.
Dr. Jha, I thought I would share one idea, because we had two teachers mention that they use Google Classroom to promote interaction. And so when I was listening to you discuss Canva, I was thinking if you wanted to use something in the Google Suite, if you're already using Google Classroom, Google Drawing is a tool that also would allow collaborative graphic design as well. And so maybe that's a tool within the suite that also works with Google Classroom depending on the settings in your district. And so that would give the same experience maybe as Canva as well.
Yes, absolutely. If you can find one that's already in a learning management system supported by your school district, that's great. Any other ideas?
We had somebody in the chat window share Google Classroom. It's also a way that can help with student-to-student interaction. I know they have some polling questions. That's one of the features in Google Classroom where you can post that question and allow students to answer to each other and to the teacher as well. Sometimes, as we all know, sometimes that's a feature that we have to teach our children how to manage interacting in the online environment and the posts we make to each other. But that's definitely a feature we could use. Someone posted that in the chat window.
Yeah, that also reminds me that because maybe our students, they don't have much prior online learning experiences. Maybe for most of them, this is their first time to do the online course. So this is also a good time for us to remind them or teach them some online etiquette behaviors, just to use appropriate language, do not try to offend other people, maybe something we call the online etiquette.
Yes, this is a great time to build in those digital citizenship skills. So, well, I think that's all we have from the chat window.
Okay, so now let's discuss the fourth and also the last interaction, which is particularly or unique in online learning, which is a student technology interaction. So whatever students interact, the basic medium they interact with is technologies. Doesn't matter whether it's computer hardware or computer software, or it's audio, video, or even the Google Classroom, there's learning management systems. They're interacting with technologies. So we need to be aware that, first of all, whichever tool we use, are they easy for students to use? If students have any questions, do they have any questions about finding some specific tool in a learning management system, or do they have any difficulties about, saying, using their microphones or enabling their webcams? And if they have those issues, what shall we do? Is there any easy guidelines or checklists that we can share with them, or even share with the parents to help students to troubleshoot? Or is there a hotline for students to contact to get the answers immediately? So those are what we need to consider when we deliver online instructions. So that's about student technology interactions. So here I want to ask you, in addition to sharing your ideas, have you encountered any technology difficulties, or have any of your students reported to you about any technology difficulties so far? Maybe this is the first day of the class. We probably have not received much questions from our students yet. No? Okay, very good. But this is thing we definitely need to consider for our students, just to make their student technology interaction easy and feasible.
We had some thoughts from the chat window.
Yes.
Jessica said, yes, we've had multiple parents having trouble getting on specific websites or platforms. Most we've been able to help, but our district has a number to call also. That's really nice that your district's providing that support to parents and students and teachers. Cindy shared that, yes, one parent spent all day yesterday trying to get onto Google Classroom with their Android, and it said it was not supported.
Oh, probably that's mobile devices. Wow. Okay. So it's also good that we post those information like technology support contact somewhere, maybe in the homepage of our course site in Google Classrooms, so that when parents or students, they log into the Google Classroom, that's the first information they will get immediately, just in case they have any questions. Okay, so just now we went over with 4 types of interactions that typically takes place in an online class. So here we need to think from a different perspective. We need to think from the flow of a lesson. So the flow of a lesson, I'm trying to use some lesson plan, but think about we may have different formats of the lesson plan. But most of the lesson plans, they comply with Garnier's 9 events of instructions about the flow of a lesson. So I'm using the Garnier's 9 events of instructions just for us to go through the flow of the lesson together. And then we're going to assign you into small groups to see which of these tools are appropriate to use at specific stages of Garnier's 9 events of instruction or at specific stages of students' learning. So we'll go over the Garnier's 9 events first together. So first thing students will do in an online lesson or in a class is we need to gain their attention. So most likely we'll use a class ring or we'll shout to them saying, class will begin, or are you ready? Or in today's class we'll discuss this topic, just to gain their attention. And secondly, sometimes we inform students about the learning objectives, what we'll do in this class, and what you will learn or get from this class at the end of the session or class. And then we need to activate their prior knowledge, because activating the prior knowledge can help students to accept the new topic or knowledge quickly. And activating their prior knowledge is also a way to motivate students so that they see this one is related to what I learned. So probably they'll gain their interest in learning a new knowledge. And then we usually typically start with our presentations or lectures of the class. And then between our lectures and at the end of the lectures, we want to give students some guidance and then give them practice. And when they submit their practice, we want them to give them the feedback so as for them to know where their learning process goes, whether they master the knowledge or they need to go back and review and continue to improve their learning. And at the end of the lesson, or maybe at the end of a class, we'll give them the assessments. And most likely the class we teach students, hopefully they will continue to use this knowledge in their advanced classes, or maybe when they graduate and work in the work settings. So those are Garnier's 9 events. So I think before the end of our session, I have one more thing to discuss with us is this, because we're using multiple tools to communicate, to instruct our students. So one important thing is that we need to have a central place or organizer to put all these things together so that we can have a place to archive our instructions. And we can also have one place for students to go every time they want to start or resume their learning. And also we need to organize those either by weeks or by lessons. And it's very lucky that some of us have the Google Classroom as this central hub. But for those of us, if we do not have the Google Classrooms at our schools, it's good to build one central place ourselves. For example, like using Google Docs or using Class Dojo, to make that as a central place to communicate and post our instructions to our students.